Why your backyard could be a secret superfood factory. The hidden survival knowledge forged in fire and carried through frontier history still matters today. There are moments in history when survival came down to reading the land faster than the disaster moving across it. Old mountain men who travelled volcanic regions in the American West and Pacific territories weren't thrill-seekers chasing danger. They were observers who learned to recognize patterns in terrain, wind and heat long before modern emergency systems existed. Families survived not because they fought lava, but because they understood how landscapes behave under extreme stress. This episode breaks down those historical lessons, not as reckless adventure stories, but as grounded, practical knowledge that historians and prepared-minded viewers can learn from today. The goal isn't to romanticize danger, it's to understand why some communities walked away while others didn't, and how those early survival strategies shaped modern evacuation thinking. Mountain men survived by reading terrain instead of reacting to flames. Historical journals from trappers and settlers show that experienced travellers watched the shape of valleys and ridges more closely than the fire itself. Lava flows tend to follow predictable paths based on gravity and existing channels, and mountain men learned that elevation changes often mattered more than distance. Families were guided toward ridgelines, older hardened lava fields, or natural stone barriers that slowed advancing heat. Today, the takeaway isn't to test this knowledge in a real emergency, but to understand terrain awareness. Studying maps, understanding slope direction, and recognizing natural barriers remain essential preparedness habits, whether you're hiking, camping, or simply learning historical land navigation. They chose natural stone and open ground over dense forests when sheltering. One recurring theme in frontier accounts is the avoidance of heavy timber during volcanic activity. While forests might seem like protection, they trap heat and ignite quickly. Mountain men often directed wagons or temporary camps toward rocky clearings, dry riverbeds, or previously burned areas where fuel was limited. For modern viewers, the practical lesson is simple: knowing the difference between visual shelter and safe terrain. In many disaster scenarios, open space reduces risk. Even outside volcanic regions, understanding how vegetation density influences fire behavior can improve outdoor decision-making and historical appreciation. Smoke and wind direction became early warning systems long before modern forecasts. Families who survived often relied on subtle signals: ash falling at certain angles, the smell of sulphur carried on shifting winds, or distant rumbling that echoed differently through valleys. Mountain men treated wind shifts as the real danger signal because they could change the speed and direction of advancing heat. The modern application is learning environmental awareness. Watching cloud movement, wind patterns and changes in air quality isn't just historical trivia. It builds observational skills that translate into safer travel and preparedness planning. Many survival historians emphasize that early recognition of change gives people more options than reacting at the last moment. They moved early and light instead of waiting for certainty. One of the hardest lessons recorded in frontier history is that hesitation costs time. Experienced guides encourage families to relocate before the threat felt immediate, prioritizing essential gear and leaving behind heavy possessions. This wasn't panic, it was strategic mobility. The practical takeaway today isn't about running from disasters, but about planning ahead. Having a small ready kit, understanding exit routes from a campsite, or simply knowing alternative paths during outdoor travel reflects the same mindset that helped historical families survive extreme events. Water sources and cooled lava fields became unexpected lifelines. Historical accounts mention that hardened lava from previous eruptions often provided safer footing and, fewer burn hazards compared to fresh vegetation zones. Mountain men also used nearby water sources not to stop lava, an impossible task, but to stay hydrated and reduce heat exposure while moving. For modern viewers, this really reinforces the value of studying landscape history. Knowing which areas have burned before, where natural water exists, and how geological features influence movement can improve both hiking safety and historical understanding. It's less about copying old methods and more about appreciating how environmental knowledge shapes survival outcomes. Why many of these lessons faded as modern infrastructure replaced land awareness. As roads, vehicles and real-time alerts became common, fewer people relied on direct environmental observation. Mountain men passed knowledge through experience and storytelling, but industrial development shifted focus toward technology rather than terrain reading. Historians now revisit these accounts not because they reject modern systems, but because they reveal timeless principles about awareness, preparation, and movement. The irony is that many of the strategies that saved families were simple habits. Watching the wind, choosing open ground, travelling light, that remain relevant for anyone exploring wilderness areas today. How history enthusiasts and survival-minded viewers can apply these lessons responsibly today. The real value of studying mountain man survival stories lies in perspective. Instead of viewing disasters as cinematic moments, these accounts highlight calm decision-making grounded in observation. Practically speaking, you can start by studying topographic maps before outdoor trips, learning to identify safe clearings and understanding how geography influences risk. Visiting historical sites, reading first-hand journals, and analysing old travel routes also builds a deeper appreciation for how people navigated danger long before modern equipment existed. The key is respect for the environment and recognition that knowledge should guide caution, not encourage risk. Closing thoughts on why these forgotten survival stories still resonate with modern audiences. Old mountain men didn't survive because they were fearless. They survived because they paid attention to patterns others ignored. Their stories remind us that history isn't just about the past. It's a record of lessons learned under pressure. Whether you're a historian fascinated by frontier life or a prepared enthusiast studying environmental awareness, these lava flow survival strategies offer insight into human resilience and practical observation. If you found value in this deep dive into forgotten survival knowledge, make sure to subscribe, share the video with fellow history buffs, and keep exploring the real lessons hidden inside the past.